Yeah, because you totally could make a club based around video game research. Continuing from last week, with Clean Club Room, our heroines were able to hold their first actual meeting. And to her credit, Manatsu managed to organize most of the stuff they needed for a club, including a supervisor with Sakuragawa-sensei happily agreeing, even though they hadn't figured out what sort of club they were yet. Sango, I officially declare you as my spirit animal for the show. Anyway, in spite of planning everything in this episode, Manatsu actually nominated Asuka as the club president, which again was a nice touch, showing that she does have foresight, just really poor communication skills, as we'll see throughout this episode. Meanwhile, the lair of the Witch of Procrastination, we finally got to see the Sea Witch again after 5 episodes. And not only did she speak more than one sentence, we also learned some of the villain's motivations, which include gathering motivation energy to
try to take over the world.
Speaking of which, I think we also learned the Big Bad's catchphrase. Lady, if you want coffee, you just have to ask. I have some cold brew right here. Back with the Precure, they began brainstorming ideas for what their club would do. Laura, being a fan of their product placement, suggested they make a club based around baking melon pan. I know I said this a lot last week, but I kind of have to say it again. That gimmick's already been taken. Tough being part of an almost 20-year franchise, ain't it? She also explained that they didn't have the pastry in the Grand Ocean because it would just get soggy. And yet water in this show hasn't really affected lipstick and yes, even food, but whatever. Manatsu, of course, threw out a ton of ideas, including a writer club, again that's already been taken, and tried to submit it to the student council. Not wanting to argue with President Yuriko lest she get tased, Manatsu backed away and okay, that was a funny cut and everything, but from a realistic standpoint, did Manatsu get back to the club room on the roof while walking backwards with her eyes closed? You know, you could probably form some kind of sports club with that sort of hand-eye coordination. Well, I actually did it. Minori, being the most organized member of this club, actually set up a proper itinerary, albeit a very cluttered one. Ah, jeez, look what y'all did to the fourth wall! As a result, they ended up submitting a massive proposal, which again was rightfully shut down for being an insane hodgepodge of activities. Thus, they had to settle on just one specific activity. Manatsu made a suggestion box for ideas that would also let them keep things anonymous, and as a hilarious running joke, they would correctly guess who wrote what throughout. First up was Minori's literature club suggestion, which was ultimately thrown out when one of their members somehow got tipsy after reading.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Next was Laura's suggestion. Well, there goes this show's G rating. Not wanting any S&M in their school, they quickly dropped it, and they moved on to Asuka's proposal, which was to become friends with a game character. You know, in times like this, you can really tell when a head writer takes over. Asuka just got more characterization in this one scene than she did in almost the entirety of her debut episode. Also, judging by the fact that she managed to create a custom avatar and the general design of this game, I'm assuming this is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Good luck trying to buy those amiibo cards. And again, I don't agree with this idea being rejected. Then again, game development has never been this franchise's strong suit. No, what the execs really wanted was the last suggestion, which was Sango's cosmetics. Again, I'm not gonna get over how cheap some of this stuff looks, but whatever. It was one of the more practical suggestions, except for the fact that Japanese schools don't permit the overusage of cosmetics. Well, there goes this show's bottom line. After a cute new eye catch, we were finally introduced to the shrimp maid from the opening named Elda. Okay, someone please explain to me, why is it that Chris Yukine's VA still hasn't played a Precure? This is the second bit character in this franchise Aihi Takagaki has played, and yet both their co-stars have already played Cures, and even an antagonist from GX is playing a main supporting character. At this rate, Shota Aoi is going to voice a Precure before her, which I wouldn't be against. Anyway, the little shrimp at least got some decent characterization as an arrogant little brat who didn't see the Precure as anything more than some kids cosplaying superheroines, which, wasn't exactly wrong either. And Numeri offered to deal with them, but realized her juggling the Yaneda orbs in the last episode probably wasn't a good idea. And honestly, this is a good callback and use of continuity that we would see more in just a bit. But first, we cut back to the Precure, who needed to come up with a proper club proposal before the deadline at the end of the day. Though that would end up getting sidelined after they ran into some graduates of the school who were looking for a certain penguin statue. Oh, and also, each of these ladies had names that included the 4 seasons: fall, winter, spring, and summer. So what, were you all part of Ken Tsukisaki's harem? And there goes another reference that's likely gone over everyone's head. Anyway, Laura quickly realized they had messed up and had sent a giant Prinny to the recycling center during their cleanup. Sakuragawa contacted them, and while it thankfully hadn't been turned into cans or something, the statue had already been sent to a recycle shop to be sold. The 4 seasons were ready to give up, but Manatsu, in a nice usage of her mantra, insisted they look for it in spite of it meaning that they might lose their club in the process. They searched and eventually did find the bird after it got accidentally turned into a monster of the week. Great, now I have to retract my previous statement. Pity, because I would have loved to seen a fight with Pegaton's grandpappy. I swear, if Toy is watching me, then please be gentle and stop claiming my videos. The Precure transformed, and we got our first team roll call for the season, which was them just doing a light jog before jumping towards the screen as though they were the Gold Ranger or something. Okay, y'all need to take lessons from the Kira Majors on how to do a proper roll call. Anyway, since the monster didn't have any general commanding yet, no motivation energy was stolen this week, so the Precure went to some stiff animations and stock footage, and it was over in less than a minute. Pringer X, this bird wasn't. Anyway, they brought back the bird after hopefully paying this guy for it, and the 4 seasons fished out what they were looking for out of the statue's mouth, because why not at this point? And it turned out to be a locket of them during their school days, which was a touching moment. So much so that it inspired Manatsu to turn her catchphrase into the mission statement for their club. Of course, it was still a very vague description, and really, she probably could just have described them as a volunteer club, but whatever, it was the way she wanted to describe her tropical club, which also got the approval of the 4 seasons. And I'm guessing Yuriko just got tired of all this and gave them a tentative pass as long as they maintain a proper itinerary. With that, the episode ended with the Tropical Club toasting to their official establishment. While light on story and definitely a lot on action, this was still a pretty fun little slice of life episode. We did get some good characterization for each of our main heroines, as well as some interesting establishment for their new base of operations. It was certainly a process trying to get to that point, but that was also kind of part of the fun. After some debut episodes where we focused mostly on just one character, it was nice getting an episode that could be described as a proper group episode. Each of our heroines were afforded full vignettes where they managed to get across their major characteristics. My personal favorite was, of course, Asuka playing some Animal Crossing. And obviously, Manatsu got the lion's share of spotlight, leading her team in spite of making Asuka the club president. Though stuff like that, plus her sticking to her mantra, was good characterization. I wasn't as sold on some of her other antics, like not even coming up with a proper club mission by the end. Seriously, I felt bad for Yuriko. Still, that's just a minor complaint. My more significant complaint was the downgraded animation, including a ridiculously short fight. Yeah, it was somewhat justified as there were no generals around, but still, that plus an underwhelming roll call was disappointing. And yet, like Yuriko, I can give it somewhat of a pass as long as there's good characterization for our protagonist, and even antagonist, with Elda getting a fun introduction, and at least a few more words from the witch. Moreover, it is encouraging to see continuity between episodes scripted by different writers this early into the series. So overall, a good character building episode with some not so great action, but also some really good comedy. So a fun time, just don't expect any good penguin fights unless the real Pegaton is involved. Work on part 2 of my Gold Princess review is underway. It's a little tricky trying to balance that out with packing all of my boxes. You really start to realize how much otaku junk you have when these days come. Still, I'll do what I can with it. Who knows, it might end up being one of the first videos I record at the new apartment, which should be interesting. Also, before I forget, Happy Easter everyone, and I hope you have a nice, safe first Sunday of April. Look forward to it, and until then though, for now my friends, and yeah, I'm gonna have to go buy some materials to fix up this fourth wall.